Welcome to Orange County Power Players, where we spotlight the personal, professional, and financial success stories of OC's top leaders. Here's your host, Danny Flores.
Welcome back to OC Power Players, where I interview some of the most successful people in Orange County. I'm Danny Flores, your host, and today's honored guest is Robert Pelletier, zooming in from Orange. Robert is the owner and CEO of Pacific Hardwood, a $25 million custom wood flooring manufacturer based in Orange County, in California. With an engineering degree from RIT and an MBA in finance from Emory, he has spent his career scaling operations, leading teams, and building companies from the ground up. Robert is also the voice behind 4K Weeks, a blog and platform dedicated to helping people live with urgency, reclaim their time, and pursue a life of purpose. A husband and a father of three, he shares real-world lessons from the trenches of business, personal growth, and family life. Robert, welcome.
Oh, good morning, Danny. Well, that's quite the flattering introduction. Thank you.
So tell us how you got from to your hardwood company, and how you got there, and how you know the trials and tribulations and great things that have happened along the way.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's been a little windy journey, like most are. So I grew up in a small town in upstate New York. My mom waited tables. My dad was a plumber. So I grew up in a very kind of blue collar household. I was always pretty aspirational. I went and got an engineering degree, as you mentioned, at RIT. And really, I knew I didn't want to be an engineer, but I looked at it as a way for me to get my foot in the door, at a young age, and try to kind of springboard my career into more leadership and operations. So I spent about 15 years working for other companies before having my own business. My wife and I have been together about 26 years, and the first 10 years of that, we moved to 6 different states in 10 years. So I think one of the keys to success and kind of where the journey ended up is, really being willing to get out of your comfort zone. So it's pretty difficult, when you move that much, every 18 to 36 months, you're meeting new people and kind of starting all over again. But just really chasing opportunities helped me springboard my corporate career. The last 7 years, I worked with a company called RSI Home Products. They were the world's largest cabinet company by volume. And I worked my way up that organization, and I was running global operations and engineering in my early to mid 30s. So I had 11 factories and about 5,000 employees. And during that journey, I really learned lean manufacturing, kind of the Toyota production system, or the Japanese way of building vehicles that kind of has taken root in any manufacturing setting. And I was able to, grow a very nice career on the corporate side. But during that period of time, I started having children, and I was never home. So I would be gone, 15 days, 20, 21 days a month. And that's not really conducive to being much of a husband or a father. So I kind of had a difficult fork in the road a little over 10 years ago, where I needed to step away from corporate life, and kind of woke up finding myself unemployed in my mid 30s with 3 little kids in Southern California. So I started a consulting company. I helped 4 businesses in pretty quick order: a fashion company, a promotion product company, a food company, and then Pacific Hardwood was actually my 4th client. That's the company I own now. So the owner over time was looking for an exit, and I was looking for an entrance, and that's kind of how I ended up here, in short.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So a couple questions. It seems like the first 15 years in working in corporate life helped you build a foundation of how to run businesses. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. I wish I got entrepreneurial a little bit sooner. I don't think it would have taken 15 years, but I would say, the first 7 to 10 years at least, I think were instrumental and critical in helping me scale my own business. I really run this business much like it's a Fortune 500 company. We've got, solid systems in place. We've got, playbooks and SOPs, and, the way that we lead teams and build programs and launch products, as a result of working for some of the largest companies in the world, like Unilever, Acuity Brands, RSI, as I mentioned. So, I don't think people necessarily need to jump right into entrepreneurship. I wish I made the transition a little bit earlier than I did in hindsight, but certainly that corporate background was a huge asset.
Now, you said you moved every 18 to 36 months.
Yeah.
What was the purpose of moving? Was it because you were getting different job offers, or was it
Yeah.
just to get out of your comfort zone? And
Yeah, it was primarily opportunities. So, I started with Unilever in Connecticut. We launched a product called Axe Body Spray, which you've probably heard of. It smells
Mhm.
horrible in hindsight, but it was a pretty popular product back then. And one of our co-packers, got to know me during that process and kind of stole me from Unilever. So I was able to, at 23 years old, I was running a 3-shift operation with about 350 people. So that let me skip like 4 or 5 years in my career.
Right, right.
And then I ended up down in Atlanta at Acuity Brands. I actually was very happy working in Rhode Island at the co-packer I mentioned. But my best friend happened to live in Atlanta, and I hadn't seen him since college. It had been a few years, so I thought I'd just go to that job interview, for a reason to party for the weekend, basically, and hang out.
Right.
And when
Yeah.
I got down to Atlanta, I found that company was taking lean manufacturing very seriously. So I was able to work through them with the founders in Japan that invented the Toyota production system. So they were all 60 to 75-year-old Japanese guys, but they really worked with Taiichi Ohno to build what's known as TPS, or lean manufacturing, and what kind of GE turned into Six Sigma. And I got to learn right from the people that built it. And that was another kind of career springboarding moment.
Hmm.
When I went to get my MBA at Emory, it was while I was working in Atlanta. So those were some really tough weeks because I was working 95, 100 hours a week for a 16-month period, working full time and going to school full time. And I really enjoyed working there. It's just we were making really heavy duty industrial chemicals, and I could see the health effects it was having on the people that work there. So I ended up making the difficult decision to leave that company to go to RSI. That was somewhat of a lateral move, but RSI, they're probably, at least in my experience, they're the best company that I've ever seen that really knows their numbers and knows how to leverage the power of information and really manufacturing excellence. So to give you an example, in one factory alone, we were making 150,000 cabinets a week. We were able to reduce our scrap by 64% over a 3-month period, improve our efficiencies by almost 40% over a 6-month period using these Japanese methodologies. So, the moves were really just strategic opportunities to kind of, move my career along quickly, but not so quickly that the learnings weren't there. So I was just able to, I think, build maybe 25 years of experience over a 10-year period.
That's amazing. Cutting back on that time. Now, I would imagine that these companies had training programs, and that's how you were able to learn as you made the move.
Particularly Acuity Brands, where I worked in Atlanta. Yeah, most of my training and expertise I developed in terms of efficiencies and lean manufacturing, et cetera, came from that company. And
Hmm.
then, I was able to take those to RSI and kind of revolutionize in part, how they manufactured and moved, but also bolt on things that they were operationally excellent on, really in knowing their numbers. I think you'll find a lot of particularly small business owners, they don't know their numbers anywhere near as much as they need to. I'm in EO, which is Entrepreneurs Organization. I have the pleasure of being on the board there, and I get to know a lot of the people in our chapter. We have almost 200 business owners just in the Orange County chapter, and I find it really interesting to see kind of that wide spread of people that really know their numbers and people that don't know anything about their numbers. And I'd hazard to say that the majority of even the business owners I interact with, they really don't have a good understanding of their numbers, and that leaves a lot on the table, not just in terms of profitability, but also their ability to analyze and understand their business for growth. So that was a real takeaway at RSI, not necessarily training per se, but the culture they had there. I've really kind of put into my own business.
Tell us a little bit about what is it you said? E&O?
EO is the Entrepreneurs Organization. So that's a global organization. We have a chapter in Orange County. We've got about 177 members right now. There's also an LA chapter, a San Diego chapter. They're all over the world. So, I joined that almost 4 years ago. I think it'll be 4 years this fall. And it's really been great. So we get put in forums. So I have a handful of other people in my forum. We meet once a month, and we really deep dive on our business, our personal, and our family lives, and do experience shares and growth building together. We take an annual retreat. I actually just got back from El Salvador, of all places, just on Saturday. So we were in El Salvador for the better part of a week, and we got to really meet with the government there, the vice president's office, and learn how that country has gone from the most dangerous place in Latin America to the safest. and how they were able to get rid of the cartels and kind of take over the government and put some positive things in place there. And now what they're trying to do to build economically as a result of having a safe place to live in a strategic location. And then as a chapter, we have chapter retreats and chapter events, and then there's regional and global events as well. So I think it's really important that you surround yourself with like-minded people and that you make sure that you're not always the sharpest pencil in the barrel and that you're putting yourselves in opportunities, where you're outside your comfort zone and you can stretch and grow and be around other entrepreneurs and like-minded people.
What would be a good way to make other business owners aware, not only to be able to be involved, to help their businesses grow, but I think part of the other half of it is to be able to give back, right? Like you guys are doing in San Salvador, going back and helping people that don't have the knowledge or the abilities that we have here in the United States.
Yeah, 100%. So actually, it's interesting you mentioned that. So I'm moving from member engagement on the board this past year. Our fiscal year starts in July. I'm going to be the marketing communications chair this year. So one of my goals is to really increase the knowledge of who we are and what we do. So we'll be doing a lot on social media, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, direct email. And one of our goals is to really get more community involved. So get with the chambers of commerce, the mayors of cities, do a lot of give backs and outreach. And then we'll be sharing some of that content as well. But if anybody's watching this and they're a business owner and they're interested in learning more about it, you can certainly email me. It's just simply robert@pacifichardwood.com. There's no S. So robert@pacifichardwood.com. And I'd be happy to chat with you.
Do they have certain requirements to be able to join?
Yeah, the main requirement is that you have at least $1 million in revenue.
Okay. So that means you have to have, now what if a business doesn't have that and they're still interested in saying, hey, okay, I don't have the $1 million in revenue, but help me get there so I can get there and join.
Yeah, we have a program called EO Accelerator, which is fantastically run. There's a guy named Zach who runs it. And I believe it's either 150 or 250 is the revenue requirement, 150,000 or 250. But that is actually kind of a feeder system to the main EO organization. So within Accelerator, they get exposed to a lot of learning events and opportunities to network and get mentors from within the larger group. So if anyone's interested in Accelerator, I'd be happy to direct them and connect them with Zach as well.
Okay, so that's perfect. Now taking like one step back in the hardwood company. Now you said, I think they were your clients as a consultant, right? When you got exposed to the potential exit of that company.
Yeah.
And then you went and bought the company. What's happened since the day you bought it to until now as far as growth is concerned?
Yeah, so interestingly, so when I came in here, I got along with the owner pretty well. So I actually worked with him for almost 7 years. So I took a 70% pay cut when I came here. We mitigated that over time as we grew the business. But I really wanted to make sure that I could spend a lot of time with my kids when they were young and in their formative years. And this business was only 10 minutes from my house. So it was an opportunity for me to take, the experience of managing, 5,000 employees over 11 factories and pour it into one small factory. And I ended up buying him out right before COVID. So right before right after January.
Oh, interesting time to buy it, to sell and to buy.
It was very interesting. So it was scary, to be honest. So I bought it in January of 2020. And then when COVID hit, we were shut down. So I had mortgaged my house and I had emptied my life savings and I went $6 million into debt. And then I thought I was going to be bankrupt fairly quickly because no one knew what was going to happen there. So I remember the governor had a list of essential businesses and one of them on there said hardware stores. So I went to Home Depot and I bought about $5,000 worth of hardware and I decorated the office area as a hardware store. And most all employees wanted to keep working. So we stayed in business a little bit, to be honest, under the covers for a little bit. Yeah. And then luckily 2 weeks later, we were deemed an essential business. And COVID was an absolutely horrid situation for so many people and families in so many ways. From a purely business standpoint, it really put the business on steroids. So not only did organic demand increase because so many people were remodeling and a lot of real estate and construction was going on because there was nothing.
Right. Yeah.
But the government also started handing out money like peanuts, right? So because we had employees and overhead, we were able to take advantage of the PPP programs and the disaster loans and the employee retention credits. So I kind of got the government as a private equity partner without actually having to have a partner. So I was able to inject a few $1 million of liquidity into the business. And we really used that to both build our operational side and really dive into digital and social media marketing. And as a result of that, we've been blessed with about quadruple growth over the last 5 years and 2 months.
Having the experience of running large factories is your dream to continue to build this as large as you can. And I don't know, are you guys national where you guys material goes back and forth, or even international with your material?
Yeah, we sell globally. Over 95% is definitely domestic, but basically we sell into anywhere there's a wealth pocket. So we're manufacturing high-end, made to order, but made very quickly, custom hardwood flooring and accessories. So we make any species, any width, any grade, and we have a 3.5 acre facility here in Orange. So we make about 3.5 million square feet a year, but it's one job at a time. So it might be a 200 square foot repair job, or it might be a 250,000 square foot, luxury condominium complex, or a large hospitality or retail center. But yeah, we ship nationally. It's a very high end product. So I'm a car guy, so I say we're like the Ferrari of flooring. So those customers that are looking to get something custom made, but in a very quick lead time and a just in time way, we're able to do that here domestically.
Now, do they go direct to you, or do they go through a retailer store to be able to get your material?
So traditionally to date, most of it has been direct. So we do 95% B2B. We have started to launch some custom color lines into high-end retailers, mainly like the kind of appointment only places, where you've got in the design districts in Miami and Los Angeles and Dallas and New York City. I'm really staying away from going direct to consumers. I'd like to focus on making sure that we can provide the best product and service to the trades, or select high-end retailers that then can, direct the product to the customer.
No, that's great to know. Me knowing a little bit about the construction field, sometimes you hear about, let's say, somebody has a nice 5,000 square foot house and they get water damage, but they can't get that floor anymore.
Yeah.
So then you'd be the guy to go to say, hey, you know what? I like my floor. Maybe it's they need some of it because it's damaged and they don't want to replace the whole house.
Sure.
We do that, right?
We do that every week. So they'll bring in a few pieces of the flooring and we'll custom color match it and custom manufacture it. And then they're able to just, they don't get inconvenienced by having to move out of their house and have it completely torn apart. They can have just that section repaired.
Right. It would be so much more cost effective to do that.
Yeah.
Now, are you still consulting, or you're not consulting anymore? You're basically
no, I do. Well, not for companies. So I have a blog. You can see it at officialrobertjohn.com. That's JOHN. It's the 4,000 Weeks blog that you mentioned earlier. So I am starting to reach out and try to help people, both with life skills and financial management, personal development, etc. So I've got some things in the works that I'm hoping to launch this fall that'll kind of scale that. But that'll be mostly done, virtually, etc. But I try to post maybe twice a week. There's some articles that are on there. I think there's 60 or 65 of them there so far. And my hope is, as I was blessed to be able to kind of grow businesses and become successful, a lot of the people that I grew up with in that small town in upstate New York would reach out to me and ask me for advice and help. And I certainly don't have all the answers, but I try to share my experiences and, learn from them as well. So I've been taking that and then starting to scale that. And, hopefully I can have a larger reach over YouTube, Instagram, et cetera, as the fall and winter comes.
Do you feel that some of your peers that you grew up with, I would imagine that a lot of them maybe are not business owners, or maybe have thought about it, but have you been able to positively influence them and saying, yeah, you can do it, take the chance, let me show you how, kind of a thing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most of them are not business owners and probably won't ever take that jump, but there are 4 or 5 examples I can think of, off the top of my head, where they're kind of waffling on the fence, and they were in industries where you didn't require a lot of capital. I know there's one, for instance, that was in cosmetology, that now is one of the premier, hairdressers and cosmetologists in the area. Her husband, by chance, actually took the jump a year or two later, and it has a landscaping company now, and it's scaled very, very nicely. They have a fleet of trucks, et cetera. So yeah, I've gotten people to do that, and as or more importantly than that, it's not just about business and money and entrepreneurship. It's about really making sure that you're enjoying and maximizing the most valuable commodity that we have, which is time, and being able to leverage time and create the best quality of life overall that you can for you and your family.
Right, right. That's the idea, right? To be able to do that, because if that's if anybody is listening, if you think going into business is easy, I think it's probably one of the most hardest things ever to do.
Yeah.
What would you say that, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, there's no off switch. It's funny. One of my customers in New York City, we were emailing back and forth on Saturday, and he asked me. He said, "Do you think our employees think we're crazy?" And I said, "Well, yeah, of course they do." I said, "But at least mine have come to accept it, you know." So I don't,
Yeah.
I look at it this way. I have a lot of freedom over my schedule. So I don't miss my kids' games. I don't miss my daughter's
Mhm.
performances. I'm engaged and involved all the time. I probably spend more time with my kids in a month than I was able to spend with my parents my entire childhood because
Mhm.
they were on fixed schedules. But I also probably work more hours than
Mhm.
pretty much anyone I know. So, but
Right.
I enjoy building the business. I don't look at the building part as work. There's certainly aspects of my business that drive me nuts. There's a couple of things that happened this morning, quite honest, that are infuriating. But
Yeah.
that's business. But that kind of building, I don't look at as work. So it doesn't bother me at all to be screwing around on my phone at 5 in the morning or 11 at night or getting an
Mhm.
idea at 1 in the morning. This is not a job; it's a lifestyle. So
Right. Right.
certain people are cut out and enjoy that lifestyle, and other people want just stability and certainty. What I would encourage your audience, if they're not entrepreneurial, is there's no. I have an article about this in my blog. It's called "There's No Safety in Safety," right? And especially this day and age. So people that think they take that traditional path, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get a degree, I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to work for a company. There's very little safety and security in that. You're at the whims of all sorts of global macroeconomic issues, buyouts, changes in management, et cetera.
Mhm.
At least here as an entrepreneur, you're never totally in control of everything, but I am in control of my actions, and the actions that I undertake are contributing directly to my own business. And I'm win or lose, that's where my activity and energy goes.
Right, right, right. No, that's very well put. Because maybe in the old days you have a job and you're pretty secure. Nowadays, yeah, you can think you have a secure job just because you show up there every day, do 9 to 5, and you can show up on a Friday and they say, "Here's a pink slip.
Yeah,
We're cutting back or whatever." Now you're scrambling. So the insecure part exists almost in any choice you make.
100%. I think it's critical that you build the skills, tools, and knowledge that no matter what's going on around you, you have a monetizable set of skills that whether you're an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, you're able to exercise and execute.
Now, one thing that I want to bring up, and because you mentioned social media, I mean, in today's day and age, if you have a business, you have to exist in social media.
Yeah,
But one of the things that they say in social media is that you don't need an education to be successful. Tell us how your education made or helped to give you better set of tools to do what you do now, because you mentioned that you went to school working full time and school full time.
yeah,
That's difficult to do. Many people don't have to do that. They can actually go to school, maybe their parents pay, and then they can go to work. So you put yourself through that and that rigorous schedule to get there. So how important is an education and the results of having an education?
sure. Yeah, well, my parents were very instrumental in helping me in undergrad. When I put myself through the work in the school, that was for my master's about 6 years later.
Hmm.
But I hear what you're saying there. So that's an interesting question I struggle with. So I have three kids. One in high school, one starting high school this year, and the other one a couple years behind. And none of them are particularly excited about college, and I have mixed feelings about it too. So
Hmm.
I would say, like as I sit here, my 14-year-old's working full time. He's in an office right over here. My
Hmm.
16-year-old is over here trying to build his own business here this summer that's not related to my business.
Hmm.
If you truly have the gumption and the support, they're lucky to have a parent that owns a business to kind of give them some of those vehicles and head start.
Good.
Then maybe you can move that way. I would say for education, I don't use a lot of what I technically learned in college, whether it was my engineering degree or my business degree on a day-to-day basis. But what that did do for me is it helped me build a lot of social skills, life skills, and leadership skills. And then, secondary or as importantly to that is there's a certain amount of discipline and rigor that goes to seeing that through and following it through so that you learn how to become an adult. I think, it's nice to for every young person to think, oh, I'm just going to go become an influencer or a YouTuber or whatever, or drop shipper, and I'm just going to build a business out of thin air. And there are people that can do that, but for every 100 that do it, there's probably one or two that's able to just make that leap. I think a baseline education and probably at least some experience in a established business, so you can get some exposure to systems and really, when I worked, I never looked at any of my jobs as a career. Any of the jobs I had as a job, even when I didn't have my own business. I looked at it as, what am I going to learn? How am I going to deliver value? But what am I going to learn out of this? So I try to just exploit as much education out of the businesses that I work for as possible, to just suck all that in. And then now I'm able to deploy that in my business. So, education, whether it's in a college or a trade school or getting into a business and really learning, is going to be fundamental to anybody's success.
Right. I agree with you, and I think the young kids now kind of fight that battle in their mind, because they hear, like, okay, they see in social media that, you look at the cars and the money and whatever else they put on social media, and they say, hey, you don't need college. But I'm kind of like with you. I don't feel that that's necessarily true.
Yeah. I mean, if you've got a big personality and a whole lot of work ethic and some luck, you can probably, there are people that make it without it.
Right.
But you're still going to need to have mentors and systems and things in place, for sure.
100%. 100%. So as we wrap up the interview here, what do the next 6 to 12 months look like for you? What are you working on that's exciting?
Well, we're trying to double this business again. So a lot of that is coming through the use of artificial intelligence, both operationally and particularly in sales and marketing. So we've, in our space, there's not a lot of digital and social media marketing in the wood industry. So when I started our Instagram page 3 years ago, I wasn't really expecting much, but last year we did almost $9 million in sales off of Instagram. And that's been a result of a very disciplined system we've put in place to drive a lot of things through Instagram and LinkedIn and become very present in our customers' mind and build a brand for the business and build my own personal brand as well. Now we're leveraging AI on top of that. So another member in my EO chapter, he has something called the X100 program. His name's Scott Empringham, and it's absolutely fantastic. So if anyone's interested in that, you can email me as well. I try to refer him as many people as I can, because it's been transformational for us. But artificial intelligence is really, I'm not going to say it's going to take over the world, but it's certainly going to take over and differentiate folks who take advantage of it from those who don't. So the kind of content that we're able to create just now that we weren't able to even make 2 weeks ago, and then the content 2 weeks ago versus 2 months ago, it's an exponential curve of what's going on there. And you can literally make Hollywood quality video, for basically peanuts, next to no money, just with some training and expertise. So we're going to leverage all of those tools to push out and double this business again. So I'd like to get up to around 40 million over the next 24 to 36 months. The challenge we'll have is keeping up operationally. I don't think the sales side will be the problem. I think it's going to be, building out the physical infrastructure, because it really is difficult to find employees that want to work in factories anymore. And it's also, it's just very difficult to scale operations. So very excited about it, though. That's the next challenge and hurdle, and we're looking forward to it.
I think we can actually probably do a whole podcast on the difficulty of finding employees.
Absolutely. We go through 8 to 11 for every one that we get. Yep. And it doesn't matter what you pay them. I pay for 100% of their health insurance. I have a profit sharing plan. We pay everyone a living wage. This is not a place that like grinds people up. It's probably, I would say it's one of the best places to work in terms of overall package and quality of life. But even with that, it's agonizing to find people. So we've had to really invest in automation and robotics. So if you came to my factory, it wouldn't look like a wood shop. It would look more like a place where they build cars or semiconductors. There's robots everywhere and there's automation everywhere. And that's not designed to fire people. In fact, we haven't fired anybody. We've added people. It's as we grow, we redeploy the good people we have to other areas, and we continue to bring in the automation to help us grow, because it's very, very hard to get people, for sure.
Wow. No, yeah, I hear you. That's the struggle. Well, thank you so much for all the insight and tips you talked about. I think it's been so educational and inspiring. If somebody's listening and they want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, please check out our business, pacifichardwood.com. You can see us on Instagram at Pacific Hardwood. If you're looking for me, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Robert John Pelletier. And check out my blog, which is officialrobertjohn.com.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Robert, for coming on. And to our audience, please go to ocpowerplayers.com and follow us on your favorite channel. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you, Dan. Thank you, Danny. I really appreciate it. You have a great week.
You as well. Okay. I like to record the end as I go through my final notes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so give it about 3 weeks before we publish. We'll send you shorts and everything prepared so you can just put it on social media
Sure.
and get more people to listen to it. And then two things, two takeaways for me. One
Oh, you froze
is
up.
we work
You,
with the business
Danny,
owners such as yourselves and the alternative investors to bring in partners.
Danny, you froze up. I couldn't
Can you
hear
hear? How about now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay. All
You
right.
said
Perfect.
two things and then it froze.
Two things. One is we work with business owners such as yourselves in the alternative investment space, primarily in buying value add multifamily, where we bring them in as partners, and we're able to produce double digit returns and great tax benefits. Is that something that you would be interested in
Yeah.
learning more about what we do?
Yeah, that's actually not this year because I'm dumping every penny into this business, but there's
Mm-hmm.
going to come a point where real estate will be my next play. I want to
Okay.
make my wife a real estate professional. Um, you know,
Get the tax benefits.
I do you know Grant Cardone, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
All right, so
I
I did both of his houses, so he's a character for sure.
yeah.
But I've spent a lot of time with him personally, and I don't invest in his deals because frankly the terms are terrible.
Yeah.
But I'm familiar with kind of the concept. Yeah, when I'm not investing all of my free cash flow back into the business, that'll be kind of the next thing I want to look at.
Okay, so this would be perfect. Then if you want to get on a do a another half hour for a half hour presentation, would you be available to that?
Sure. Yeah, but like I said, I'm not interested in doing that this year because I'm just dumping money.
No. It's just to show you what we do, our flavor of it and how we do it, and then you have it in the back of your mind, and then
Sure.
you go from there. But that's one. The second one was I'd like to know more about the EO organization.
Yeah.
And because and what we do is we'll have years where we have over $1 million in revenue, and then we have years where we don't.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the accelerator would be something that would be our foot in the door so that we can build up and continually have million plus, because in the real estate business, when you sell, that's when you make your money. Is that something that you can connect
Now,
with
when you're
somebody
talking
to?
about $1 million, you're talking about $1 million in deals or your cash flow.
Well, sometimes you have, like, let's say the last 3 years, cash flows has been under a million because guess what? Interest rates went up. We haven't
Yeah,
sold
sure.
any deals. And then we're going to have deals where, this doesn't last forever. We're going to have deals where everything becomes aligns perfectly, and we're going to sell a whole bunch
Yeah,
of
I
deals, and
understand.
we're going to have a whole bunch of cash flow.
What's your let me open my email here. Hang on. Give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
I'll connect you with Zach. That would be the accelerator program, which is excellent. I think that would be a good place
Right.
to kind of check things out and see what you think. What's your best email, Danny?
It's D Flores
Yep.
at prime
Yep.
capi.com.
Primecappy.com.
Primecapi.com.
And then let's see here. All right, I'll connect you with Zach when we're done here, and you guys can kind of chat. If you have any issues, just let me know.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And then I mean, we're not very far away. We should just stay in touch too. I'd like to kind of see more what you're doing in your business and how you're growing that, because it's phenomenal what you've been able to do there.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, congratulations on that. I have 4 boys actually, and 2 just graduated, and
Ah,
I'm doing it just a little bit different. 2 of them want to get into business. But I'm having them go out and work for companies, kind of like the path that you took, so that they're not limited to the knowledge that I have. They can go out and learn different systems and work their way up. So then when they're full of knowledge and their network has grown, we can come and kind of combine everything together.
I think that's great. Yeah, the hardest job is being a dad. That's for sure.
But it's almost the most fulfilling too.
Oh, of course.
Because yours are younger. Mine are 21, 20, 21, 22, and 23.
Wow.
They're back to back, right? And as they get older, it becomes more of a, hey, do this, hey, do that, to them coming to you, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? What do you
Yeah, I'm looking
that?
forward to that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's the
Mine are 16, 14, and 12, so they're in that phase
right.
where they think they know it all and don't need me
Right,
anymore.
right. Where you're still giving commands, but now as they get older, it's like if you want to give commands when they're 20 years old, they're not going to listen to you. But
Yeah,
when they ask you for something, then they're listening 100% of the time there.
makes sense. Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to connect you with Zach, and then yeah, if you ever want to stop by and check out the factory or something, just shoot me an email.
Yeah. All right. That sounds good, Robert.
All right,
All right.
Danny. Take
Have a
care.
wonderful day. Thanks so much.
You too. Bye bye.
Thanks for listening to Orange County Power Players. Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at ocpowerplayers.com/guest.